Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome everyone to the fourth meeting of the Public Utility Commission for calendar year 2014, and ask that you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first matter on this morning's public meeting agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 23rd meeting. I'd like to recognize Vice Chairman Coleman as the editor of the minutes. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I've reviewed the minutes of our January 23rd, 2014 public meeting, and I move that they be approved as submitted.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as submitted. It's a pleasure to welcome to the podium this morning to begin our presentation of public meeting, Ms. Cheryl Walker-Davis. Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
May it please this Honorable Commission, on behalf of your various offices and bureaus, we present for your consideration and disposition the following agenda items. Commencing this morning with matters on behalf of the Bureau of Audits, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the two recommendations to release audit reports associated with PECO Energy Company's generation supply adjustment and the alternative energy portfolio standards.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
On behalf of the Office of Special Assistance, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the recommendation appearing on page 2 with regard to J3 Energy Group, Inc. versus West Penn Power Company and UGI Development Company, as well as the recommendation pertaining to Larry Moya versus PPL Electric Utilities Corp.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
With regard to the complaint proceeding of Michael Prendergast versus Philadelphia Gas Works, there is the joint motion of Commissioners Cawley and Brown.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Cawley for purposes of the joint motion. Commissioner Cawley.
Thank you, Chairman. On behalf of Commissioner Brown and myself, I make the following motion. Before us is the complaint of Michael Prendergast, filed against Philadelphia Gas Works, alleging, among other things, that PGW unjustly and unreasonably back-billed him for 4 years of prior utility service. We agree with Administrative Law Judge Aranda Verrero's holding that, pursuant to our regulations, a company is permitted to rebill an account for previously underbilled usage. We further agree with the ALJ that PGW properly calculated the unbilled usage and interest amounts due, which were the result of a meter malfunction. PGW admitted that there was a magnetic interference which affected the accuracy of the meter reading device between 2006 and 2012. And lastly, we do agree that PGW properly billed the complainant for what he should have been billed for 4, not 6 years. Our regulations only permit back billing for 4 years, even though the underbilling may have extended for a further period of time. All of this said, the fact remains that between 2006 and 2012, the complainant was not receiving adequate price signals. Given the totality of the circumstances, including no indication that the complainant was at fault, as well as the length of time during which this error occurred, he should be awarded a conservation credit in the amount of 20%. The Commission has approved the implementation of such a credit in similar circumstances, and it is appropriate to do so here. Therefore, we move that the Office of Special Assistance draft an appropriate order consistent with this motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, the joint motion passes unanimously.
Continuing with the presentation of items on behalf of the Office of Special Assistance, it is recommended in omnibus fashion that the Commission adopt the recommendations appearing on pages 4, 5, 6, and 7 through and including the recommendation pertaining to the letter petition of TJT Inc., TDBA, AAA Limousine Service.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning now to matters presented on behalf of the Bureau of Technical Utility Services, commencing on page 8. Again, in omnibus fashion, we recommend the adoption of the items on page 8, commencing with the application of IDT Energy, Inc., continuing with the remaining items on pages 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 through and including the recommendation pertaining to the application of Master Call Connections LLC at the bottom of page 12.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
We recommend the adoption of the staff recommendation pertaining to the Frontier Communication of Breezewood, Inc., 2014 Joint Price Stability Index Service Price Index Report, noting the statement of Commissioner Brown.
So moved.
Second?
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Brown for purposes of her statement. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Consistent with Section 1102 of the Commonwealth Ethics Act, I am recusing myself from voting on this matter. My brother is employed by Frontier Communications.
So noted. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0, noting the recusal statement of Commissioner Brown.
Turning now to matters presented on behalf of the Law Bureau, we recommend the adoption of the Law Bureau recommendation with regard to Act 129 Energy Efficiency Program, Phase 2, noting the statement of Commissioner Cawley.
So moved.
Second?
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Cawley for purposes of his statement. Commissioner Cawley.
Again, thank you, Chairman. I ask that my statement be included in the record as if I had read all of it. I simply wish to encourage electric distribution companies not to limit future demand response programs in Phase 3 to the sole use of day-ahead peak usage triggers only. Given the recent volatility in hourly energy prices and threats to system reliability caused by non-peak usage-related transmission and generation outages and cold weather events, it would be premature to preclude the use of event triggers outside of the peak summer usage hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cawley. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to associate myself with Commissioner Cawley's statement.
So noted. Any additional discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting Commissioner Cawley's statement.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the remaining Law Bureau recommendation at the bottom of page 4, as well as all items appearing on page, that was page 14, as well as all items appearing on page 15 through and including the recommendation pertaining to the rulemaking involving alternative energy portfolio standards.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
On behalf of the Office of Administrative Law Judge, it is recommended that the Commission adopt ALJ Pell's recommended decision in the proceeding involving the Philadelphia Gas Works.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt ALJ Barnes's recommendation in the proceeding involving UGI Utilities, Inc.'s Gas Division's joint petition for approval to implement a growth extension tariff pilot program.
So moved.
Second?
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Whitmer for purposes of her statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like my statement entered into the record as if I had read it in its entirety. Before the Commission is the recommended decision of Administrative Law Judge Elizabeth Barnes, approving a statement regarding the joint petition of UGI Utilities to implement the Growth Extension Tariff pilot programs, or as it will be known as GET Gas. Pennsylvania sits on top of one of the largest natural gas reserves in the world. The ability to economically extract Marcellus shale gas has made Pennsylvania the second largest producer of natural gas in the country. As a result, Pennsylvania consumers should have every reasonable opportunity to take advantage of this efficient and clean-burning natural resource. GET Gas is designed to do exactly that. GET Gas increases the availability of natural gas in areas of the Commonwealth underserved or unserved by the UGI companies. Typically, customers wishing to have natural gas service extended to them must often pay a lump sum contribution in aid of construction in order to be connected. In some cases, the cost of the contribution in aid of construction can be prohibitive for homeowners or small business, running into thousands of dollars. Get Gas doesn't replace UGI's extension rules, but the pilot seeks to address the cost obstacle by allowing eligible customers to pay extension costs in monthly amounts over a 10-year period. In exchange for agreeing to pay a fixed Get Gas surcharge, currently unserved and underserved customers can gain access to Pennsylvania's burgeoning natural gas market. In addition, the pilot program, as described in the settlement, sets appropriate limits on the scope of the initiative, allowing each of the UGI companies to spend an average of $5 million per year for 5 years in order to connect customers through the program. Finally, I note that the settlement requires ongoing reporting by the UGI companies so that we can monitor the success of the endeavor as well as any issues to be resolved before deciding whether the initiative should be allowed to continue beyond the 5-year period. I'm happy to lend my support to this innovative effort by UGI, and I would like to thank and congratulate all of the parties to the settlement for reaching a resolution. Lastly, I'm challenging other natural gas utilities operating in underserved or unserved areas to also begin thinking creatively on how they too can bring a homegrown fuel to more Pennsylvania businesses and homeowners. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitmer, and I certainly would like to associate myself with your statement, but I would go one step further. It's nice to see that there was an epiphany that took place in Reading, Pennsylvania around this initiative of Get Gas. I need not remind anybody in this room, this was the same gas utility that when we approved the application for leather stocking, basically was ready to formally protest the application. So I'm glad to see, I don't want to be Debbie Downer here this morning. I commend the company for their efforts in promoting gas extension. I need not remind other gas companies in the room, there is a piece of legislation that has moved through the Pennsylvania State Senate and now is in the State Environmental Committee, or House Environmental Affairs Committee, and remind them to be active participants and not to use today's action as leverage in those discussions. So with that, again, I simply commend the company. It's nice to see this epiphany took place about 5 years later. But again, commend UGI for their efforts here this morning in reaching a settlement and launching this pilot. And yes, Commissioner Whitmer, I think other LDCs should join this effort. So
A little competition with a brand new natural gas utility and legislative effort can spur lots of creative juices.
innovation in utility world, that's a good thing, I guess. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting the statement of Commissioner Whitmer. Turning it back over to Cheryl Walker-Davis. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the complaint proceeding involving Patrick McKay versus West Penn Power Company, there is the joint motion of Commissioners Cawley and Brown.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Brown for purposes of the joint motion. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before us is the complaint of Patrick McKay against West Penn Power Company, alleging, among other things, that the company overcharged his account after 4 consecutive estimated meter readings. We support Administrative Law Judge Dunderdale's initial decision, finding that the complainant is responsible to pay the amount West Penn billed, which reflects an error in previous billing and an undercharge that occurred over a 3-month period. The ALJ found that West Penn did not notify the complainant about the unusually high consumption reading in December of 2012 until it mailed a letter to the complainant explaining the problem in March of 2013. The ALJ further found that West Penn sent the complainant 3 different bills for the period in question, which showed the complainant owed the company differing amounts. In reviewing the company's conduct, the ALJ appropriately assessed a civil penalty on West Penn for failing to provide the complainant with reasonable customer service. West Penn, however, offered to provide the complainant with a payment plan to ease his burden of paying the disputed amount. According to the initial decision, the complainant declined to accept this offer. We, however, encourage West Penn to continue to work with the complainant and to discuss the possibility of keeping this original offer open. Therefore, we move that the Office of Special Assistance draft an appropriate order consistent with this motion. Thank
Second.
you.
We have a second from Vice Chairman Coleman. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the joint motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that concludes the presentation of regular agenda items. Turning now to the carrying agenda. It is recommended on behalf of the Office of Special Assistance that the Commission adopt the recommendation pertaining to the PECO Energy Company Electric Division cap customer shopping proceeding, noting the statement of Commissioner Brown.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Brown for purposes of her statement. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the January 9, 2014 public meeting, I partially dissented on the approval of PECO's cap shopping plan. I did so because I believe that affordability is of paramount concern to cap customers. As I stated before, I believe that the price ceiling on the electric generation supplier offers proposed by PECO justly maintains affordability for cap participants. With regard to the application for stay currently before us, I am persuaded by the joint petitioner's argument that if PECO's cap shopping plan is implemented in its current form, low-income customers will be subject to the unpredictability of the market, which due to inelastic household budgets would result in irreparable harm. This is not a speculative allegation given the recent volatility that we have seen in the energy markets. Because I believe that the application for stay should be granted, I will register a partial dissent in this matter, although I will be recorded as a yes on the motion.
Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting the partial dissent of Commissioner Brown.
On behalf of the Bureau of Technical Utility Services, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the recommendation pertaining to the application of Providence Transportation, Inc.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
On page 2 of the carrying agenda, it is recommended that the Commission adopt, on behalf of the Bureau of Technical Utility Services, the recommendation pertaining to Trans-Allegheny Interstate Line TA Trail Co.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
And, Mr. Chairman, we have the Commissioner's motion, the joint motion of Vice Chairman Coleman and Commissioner Cawley with regard to the variable rate retail electric products.
I'd like to recognize Vice Chairman Coleman for purposes of the joint motion here this morning. Vice Chairman Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would ask that this joint motion be entered into the record as though we had read it in its entirety. In recent weeks, some Pennsylvania electric customers received very high electric bills in amounts 2 to 3 times and even larger than would have been normally be billed during this time of the year. Based on a number of informal complaints received by the Commission, at least 400 customers, and maybe substantially more, have received such bills. The affected customers are participating in the competitive retail market and receiving electric supply service from an electric generation supplier under a contract with a variable rate that is adjusted monthly. Other affected customers receive electric supply service under expired fixed-rate contracts that provided for variable rates on a month-to-month basis until the customer chose another supplier or returned to default service from the electric distribution company. These high bills appear to reflect wholesale energy market volatility resulting from very cold weather in the region and has endured over the last 2 months. Cold weather contributed to increased and on some days record-breaking use of natural gas and electricity within the region. As consumer usages spiked in these days, so did wholesale market prices for gas and electricity. It appears that the wholesale price increases in whole or in part were passed on to EGSs to the retail electric customers receiving service at a variable rate. This resulted in doubling, tripling, or even larger increases of the kilowatt per hour rate for these customers were charged for their electric usage. The rate customers pay in the retail electric market is governed by the terms of their contract with their supplier. The Commission regulations require EGSs to provide customers with written disclosures, statements explaining the terms and conditions of service, including the prices charged. For customers on variable rate, the disclosure statement must disclose conditions of variability and a limit of any price variability. It appears that in some customer contracts had no ceiling on the variable rate that could be charged by EGSs. It's important for consumers on variable rates to carefully review the terms and conditions of their contracts to determine if they are at risk for large rate increases at any given time. After receiving these high bill complaints, the Commission immediately developed recommendations for action. A press release was issued on January 31st of the year advising consumers receiving high electricity from their alternative supplier to carefully review the terms of their EGS contract. Additionally, the Commission last week directed its staff to initiate additional measures to help ensure that customers are fully informed about variable rate products. Changes may also be needed to the EGS disclosure statement requirements. Currently, the Commission's Office of Competitive Market Oversight is considering revisions to the disclosure statement to make them more user-friendly for consumers. At this point, OCMO's review should consider whether, for variable rates, disclosure statements should include some form of pricing history and whether these statements should expressly state that uncapped variable rates may increase without limitation. The Commission will also continue its ongoing efforts to empower consumers to more quickly change generation suppliers when they are charged unacceptable high rates. Presently, a variety of regulatory requirements, technical issues, and business practice can result in a switching process that lasts as long as 40 days. Reducing the length of this process will serve to mitigate adverse financial impacts from variable rate volatility. The Commission will continue to evaluate the additional actions that should be taken to ensure that customers are receiving adequate and accurate information to make informed decisions when purchasing electric supply. This could include adoption and implementation of additional recommendations from OCMO, including revisions to existing rules and regulations, requests for public comment for certain issues, and additional enhancements to the Commission's consumer education materials on shopping. We shall therefore open a proceeding and direct OCMO as the first step to issue the information requests listed in Appendix A of our motion related to variable price products. We shall further direct OCMO to provide recommendations for our review based on the comments received and any other information obtained during this proceeding. Therefore, we jointly move that the Office of Competitive Market Oversight prepare an order consistent with this joint motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. I simply commend you both for your efforts here this morning, Vice Chairman Coleman and Commissioner Call. I think we all joined together in addressing this event, this weather-related event, which has obviously caused an unprecedented spike in wholesale power prices. And I think it's fair to say that this commission is being proactive. You heard in the joint statement here this morning our efforts to get out to customers, whether it's through PA Power Switch or media alerts. Let me also note here this morning there are suppliers that are offering refunds and rolling back rates for customers. They're the kind of suppliers we want in this marketplace because they're committed to maintaining good customer relations. Let me also reiterate that what was said yesterday at our House Appropriations hearing. Our electric distribution companies who are in the room today, you own part of this problem, and you know it. It's this 16 to 30-day switching requirement, and it needs to be changed. Here we are today, the five of us with the Office of Competitive Market Oversight, with our Bureau of Consumer Services, trying to help these customers get away from these products and maybe get into a fixed-term product or participate in the standard offer product, and we have to wait 16 to 30 days. That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. And I want to make that point here this morning. We'll hear all the antiquated systems arguments and how we can't get there, but that's unacceptable to customers. And I know some of you are a little giddy about this because you're attacking variable rates. There is a place for variable rates in this market. We recognize that. That's why we have over 2.2 million customers out there in the marketplace shopping. As Commissioner Whitmer reminded me yesterday, this is less than 0.5% of those 2.2 million customers that have been impacted. But we feel their pain. We recognize as an agency we have to do more. We're going to continue to get out there and work with the suppliers that want to work with us. And let me remind those suppliers here this morning that if those informal complaints go formal, we will not hesitate to revoke your license. So with that, I'll conclude my diatribe here this morning, but I think it needed to be said. The five of us are unified in making sure that consumers are protected and that there is a vibrant consumer protection, a consumer marketplace. And I also will look out in the audience. The consumer advocate and the Office of Small Business Advocate need to join us in that effort, and I know you have. I see Tanya McCloskey here this morning. I see John Evans, and John's nodding his head. He gets it. We need to work together, and I think we are. I know we are. But this is an unfortunate event, but we will move forward, and we'll continue to promote a vibrant retail market for customers. So with that, is there any further discussion on the joint motion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Before we adjourn, Cheryl, this morning, I just want to make a quick note that on Thursday, February 27th, from noon to 1 p.m. at the Forum Auditorium, we will celebrate our 2014 Black History Month event entitled Civil Rights in America. And I know it's often been said in economics, there's no such thing as a free lunch, but I'm told here this morning on my cue card, there is a free lunch available at this event. And I'm also proud to welcome back to Pennsylvania a good friend of mine who I've introduced to Cheryl, and now they've become friends, and it's nationally syndicated cartoonist Rob Armstrong. And Rob actually lives on the West Coast now, but he's coming back, and this is his second year participating in this program. And again, Cheryl, I want to thank you and your planning committee for the efforts that you put forth every year in making this a great success story for our commission. And I want to praise you for that. And also tonight we have another reception, a kickoff reception over at the museum. So with that, remind everybody, Thursday, February 27th from noon to 1 p.m. at the Forum Auditorium, we'll kick off our civil rights program entitled, our Black History Month program, Civil Rights in America. With that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.